This video is part of a series of video instructions on the BioGrace greenhouse gas calculation tool. This is instruction 2.9, calculation of land use change and improved agricultural management. Actually, there are two BioGrace tools. There's BioGrace 1 for biofuels and BioGrace 2 for electricity, heat and cooling from biomass. The instruction will show the BioGrace 2 Excel tool, but can also be used for BioGrace 1. As in the BioGrace 1 Excel tool, the calculations are made in exactly the same way. In the greenhouse gas calculation of your product, also land use change or LUC or improved agricultural management should be taken into account. A LUC occurs when the crop cultivation has a different carbon stock per hectare than a reference situation. For instance, conversion of forest land or non-highly biodiverse grassland into cropland, short rotation forestry or plantations like a palm oil plantation. In this video instruction, we will work with the example of converting non-highly biodiverse grassland into short rotation forestry. When you only want to claim increased carbon stock in soils because of improved agricultural practices, like reduced or no tillage, increased residue incorporation, etc., a separate calculation should be made in the sheet named ESCA, which can also be found through the directory page under Calculation of Improved Agricultural Management. To determine when and how to take these carbon changes into account, information can be found in the Commission decision of June 2010, which is further referred to as the Commission decision. LUC and improved agricultural management are available in the BioGrace tool as separate steps near the bottom of each pathway sheet. These will collect the emissions caused by carbon stock changes from the LUC sheet or the ESCA sheet. So you will need to fill in the appropriate sheet to calculate your actual changes in carbon stock. A decreased LUC or improved agricultural management for a pathway will apply to the whole result of the pathway. The ESCA sheet is built on the same model as the LUC sheet. The same steps are needed to use it. In this video instruction, only the use of the LUC sheet is explained, but this instruction can also be used to guide you through the ESCA sheet. Please note, the tool has been designed with a single LUC and a single ESCA sheet. That does not enable calculating simultaneously two or more greenhouse gas values with different LUC or different ESCA values. So, if you would like to make calculations for two different pathways that both include either LUC or ESCA, then you will need to make a copy of the BioGrace greenhouse gas calculation tool and make one calculation in one file and the other calculation in the other. Also, if you have several consignments with different LUC values to be integrated, for example one with no LUC and one with a conversion from grassland to short rotation forest, please use a separate copy of the BioGrace greenhouse gas calculation tool to declare it. Let us switch to the tool. If you need to take into account a land use change for a pathway, please apply the following steps. For instance, in the LUC module in the bioenergy pathway as shown here. You answer yes to the question, does land use change occur? For that, use the selection box next to the question here. Make sure that macro is authorized to operate. This is the case when the text in the LUC module changes into the appearance of this figure. After selecting yes, a link to the LUC Excel sheet appears. By clicking on the link, we switch to the LUC sheet. Here we find a framework for calculating the carbon stock changes from a reference situation to actual utilization. For this, we have to select the type of calculation we want to use. Using the drop-down box here, We get three kinds of possible calculations according to the type of the soil and the information collected. First, the default calculation with mineral soils. With mineral soils, using the default values listed in the tables of the Commission decision of 2010. Second, an actual calculation. If you have your own value for carbon stocks, calculated according to the guidelines in the same Commission decision. And third, an soils calculation. For organic soils, default values do not exist for the whole formula, so a mix of default and actual calculations can be used according to the guidelines in the same Commission decision. Let us first look into the option Default Calculation with Mineral Soils. First, you need to have the data from the Commission decision 2010 that can be obtained by using this link here. In this document, all formulas and data are available. In the part dedicated to default calculation, here, you fill in the required information and data in the white cells. These cells are not using a predefined list. You should refer to the information given in column L here to find the tables from the Commission decision. Please use the same wording than the one used in the communication paper of the Commission. Note that cells in light red are automatically filled from other cells. For that, start by filling the actual land use part. For example, the actual land use is a perennial crop such as poplar or willow. Default values provided in the Commission decision paragraph 8 have been used for the estimation of carbon in vegetation, CVEG, both for the actual and the reference land use, for example grassland. The resulting LUC is calculated right below this part by applying the RAD methodology. A negative value shows an increase in the carbon stock from the reference situation. In case of an actual calculation, fill in the white cells of the actual calculation part. You should refer to the information required in column B here and to information given in column L here. First, general references for your actual value should be added in order to keep track of the source and quality of these data. In case of methods other than measurements, you should confirm that climate, soil type, etc. are taken into account, down here. If this is not the case, you cannot use your actual data. At last, add the actual carbon stock in soils, SOC, and carbon contained in vegetation, CVEG, for actual and reference uses, the white cells here. The formula from the RAD methodology is then used to get the annual carbon changes here. Please note that a positive value means carbon stock losses. In case of an organic soils calculation, actual calculations must be made for the evaluation of the carbon stock in soils, SOC, but actual calculations or default values can be used for the evaluation of the carbon in vegetation, CVEG. Check in the last line, down here, that the proper value is called. If this is not the case, get back to the drop-down menu here and choose the appropriate calculation type. As a final step, check in the bioenergy production pathway, where you need to declare a land use change, that the LUC value is there. Please also check that no improved agricultural management is declared in the module right below, down here. As explained at the start of this video instruction, the ESCA sheet is built on the same module as the LUC sheet. The same steps are needed to use it. The main difference comes from the fact that only carbon stock in soil is taken into account. There is no change in vegetation. Please also note that the ESCA has a different sign than EL. A positive ESCA means that carbon stocks in your soil are increasing, and thus that the greenhouse gas result of the pathway should decrease, whereas a positive EL means carbon stock losses. The difference comes from the formula of box 2 of the EEC Staff Working Document 2014-259 that defines that ESCA as a carbon stock accumulation from which the feedstock produced should take some advantage. Please note that if you also have a change in the above ground carbon stock due to a change in land use type, then you should use the LUC sheet. Do not use the ESCA sheet if a land use change is also declared for the same bioenergy production pathway.